But Jim, he did offer some things about the new Roadster, and maybe, I don't know if you have a reason why the stock was up yesterday, but maybe this is one reason, because he did talk about it sort of having some rocketry stuff in there, a combination of Tesla and SpaceX technology to create something that's not even really a car.
Well, he has said over and over again it's a tech delivery system. Maybe that's what this is. I think that one of the things that's happened, David, if you speak to Steve Scher, a now outgoing CEO of Hertz, the used car value of a Tesla actually has gone up in the last month, and that's allowed, that's often a floor. That's allowed Elon Musk to raise prices. That's something that is counterintuitive to the narrative that we think, but it might be true. David, the writing off of the EV is a little premature. As you and I both know that we're all going to be driving EVs by 2030. I think that this is the bottom in the stock. I said that last night in Mad Money because I've been waiting for the prices of the used cars to bottom, and they are. So I'm excited about the Roadster. I'm excited about what he's doing. I just think that we need a refresh. There hasn't been a big refresh. This is a big refresh. It does matter tremendously. And in your interview, David, let me ask you. I got to ask you about in your interview, did you detect the importance of his mood in terms of creating this?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, this is one of the most creative, not the most creative person of our era, other than Jensen Huang. That's my kind of store. Brian in North Carolina. Brian.
Booyah, Jim.
Booyah.
Thank you for all you do. I'm a club member.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
And I just want to ask you a quick question on Tesla. Sure. What are your thoughts on it?
I thought that the price increase today was very significant. I think Tesla's come down too far. Now, it's $500 billion, so it ain't cheap. The stock is down 30% for the year. When are you going to start a position in Tesla other than right now? Talking to a couple people in the industry whom I idolized last night, and GOAT kept coming up.
Referring to Jensen Huang.
Greatest of all time. And there's some people who are very cheery about knowing him. Because we know that he's ethereal, we know that he's not of us, and we know that he carries himself like a gentleman. And it's ethereal.
Do you think he's a bigger visionary than Elon Musk?
Yes.
You didn't hesitate?
Yes. And I tell you why. Because I think in the end, I do believe that that's technology on wheels. And I think that Musk can see around the corner. But I think that Jensen is thinking about a legacy of changing the entire paradigm about the way the world is. Jensen is creating single-handedly an industrial revolution. And Musk is creating single-handedly a way to be able to deliver things. And those are both brilliant things, without a doubt. But to create an industrial revolution yourself, to create the loom, to create the train, to create the steamboat, who does these things?
I do want to get your thoughts in on whether or not Nvidia's move this year reminds you a bit of the Tesla rally we saw at the start of the pandemic.
That's a good analogy, Tanvir. I definitely agree. I think the move from the hundreds to, say, 500, I think was just mostly institutions participating. And, there were fundamental reasons why there was such a dramatic move. However, I think the move since 500 now to 900, close to 1,000, and from, we'll see where this goes from here. It definitely does remind me of the Tesla move post, COVID, when retail, there's strong evidence that, Nvidia is now the retail tech darling, just like Tesla was. And so I think that's why, it's very difficult to say just where this rally is going to stop.
Tesla and Nvidia seem to have a lot in common, and this is not just in terms of their business model. Both companies are similar in terms of their growth. Today we're going to explore an exciting growth potential for Nvidia, as well as how this company may be close to towing the same path that Tesla did in the post-COVID era.
And this is really fascinating because yesterday we had Ross Gerber and he was pretty much saying that Nvidia is a story that you have to have in your portfolio, is a stock that you have to have in your portfolio. And you're saying that Nvidia is not expensive despite naysayers.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you're looking. If you want to look on a trailing price to sales basis before Nvidia's earnings have exploded to the upside, then of course it might look expensive. If you look on a forward basis, on a forward price earnings perspective, I mean, this is something that's in the 30x forward earnings, which is on the high side, but we're not talking about .com, Cisco, 60 to 200x forward price to earnings, okay? And these are real legitimate sales, cash flow, earnings that are being generated here, as opposed to back in the .com days. So I think, I'm very bullish. I'm very long Nvidia. It's a core position. I think of it as the Mag 2 now, or Terrific 2, whatever you want to call it. Nvidia and Meta, those are my only two holdings. I have a small position in Apple long as well, because I think that's been beaten down and could come back. But I think Nvidia, with a 90% market share of a market that's just starting to flex its muscle, this is a trend, AI, that can roll on for the next several years.
Yeah, my producer's calling the two dynamic duo. So perhaps that's another name you can throw in. But I do want to get your thoughts in on whether or not Nvidia's move this year reminds you a bit of the Tesla rally we saw at the start of the pandemic.
That's a good analogy, Tanvir. I definitely agree. I think the move from the hundreds to, say, 500, I think, was just mostly institutions participating, and there were fundamental reasons why there was such a dramatic move. However, I think the move since 500 now to 900, close to 1,000, and from we'll see where this goes from here. It definitely does remind me of the Tesla move post COVID, when retail, there's strong evidence that Nvidia is now the retail tech darling, just like Tesla was. And so I think that's why it's very difficult to say just where this rally is going to stop, because I think the retail participation has really only been the last couple of months. If it keeps going, and if people keep playing the options the way they seem to be playing, I mean, and the results continue to hang in there, there's no reason why Nvidia can't continue to see a rally very similar to the one that Tesla saw, which was basically 10x up from the 2018 lows.
Remember back in 2020? Yeah, wild times. And while it wasn't exactly a banner year for most businesses, Tesla was actually doing things a bit differently. And it wasn't just a bump in the road for the car maker. Instead, Tesla straight up rocketed into the stratosphere. Tesla's post-pandemic surge was like a scene straight out of a sci-fi movie, and perfect results from the combination of several factors that were propelling the automaker to incredible heights. This surge was quite impressive, and it's basically one of a kind, and makes us wonder if any other company can achieve this level of growth. Luckily, in the recent events going on with the stock market, there is one name coming to mind, and that is Nvidia. Nvidia's performance has been pretty good over the past few weeks, but has the company been able to capture some of the magic that Tesla did during the post-COVID era? Let's dive in and see how the stars are aligning for a similar Nvidia surge.
Shares of Nvidia pulling back today as investors look ahead to the chip giant's GTC conference next week, where the chip giant is expected to debut new techs. And our next guest just boosted his price target on the stock to $1,000 from $850 in anticipation of the big event. Joining us now is Matt Bryson, Wedbush Securities Senior Vice President of Equity Research for Hardware. Thank you for joining us today. Just big picture, what can we expect from this conference? There's a lot of attention on Blackwell and some of the new technology that they're bringing, but what's the overall vibe?
I think the overall vibe is going to be positive. They're always very positive during these GTC events. A lot of what they talk about is very big picture, and it tends to be things that you might not see for some time. But at the same time, Blackwell is a big deal. They've said before that they don't think they're going to be able to meet the demand for the product initially because it's so strong. And so I think a lot of investor focus is going to be on exactly what that chip looks like, when it will debut, what it might be priced at.
So, Matt, what does this mean then for competitors? We know Nvidia by far the leader within the space, but when you take a look at some of the rivals out there, specifically AMD, how far behind is that going to leave some of the other names within the space?
That's a great question. I think having said that, AMD has gotten, I believe, 4 of the large U.S. customers to buy into their solutions. I think there's interest from the cloud, the cloud data centers in having a second source, and having options. And so I think through 2024, AMD is still going to ramp revenues. You have another event out there paralleling GTC. It's a startup called Cerberus. They're showing off their wafer scale chip. Again, they have a niche, very high-end training, and I think they'll still do very well in that niche. And so I think there's demand for more than just NVIDIA. Having said that, I think that NVIDIA, in bringing the cadence of its products to market faster, is certainly doing its best to maintain its share lead.
During the post-COVID era, there was a perfect storm of investor frenzy and a lot of stimulus money floating around. The bag of cash found its way into the stock market, and Tesla, already a hot commodity with its futuristic image, became a magnet for that cash. But it wasn't just all hype, because Tesla was actually delivering on its promises. And while traditional car manufacturers were gripping with supply chain issues caused by the pandemic, Tesla was busy ramping up production at its new gigafactories in China and Berlin. It was also churning out its cars at a pretty rapid rate, which is exactly what investors love to see. Hey guys, welcome back to Tesla Tomorrow. Speaking of cars, the EV market itself was taking off. Gas prices were on a roller coaster, and people were starting to seriously consider the switch to electric. So Tesla, already a leader in the EV race, was perfectly positioned to capture and capitalize on this growing trend. And also there was Elon Musk, who constantly kept Tesla in the spotlight with all the buzz that he generated. He was like a walking, talking billboard, always advertising Tesla and how it was the future. Of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and Tesla still had some challenges, like bottlenecks in production and quality control issues. But the overall sentiment was positive. Investors saw a company with a clear vision, innovative tech, and a passionate leader at the helm. It was a recipe for success, and Tesla delivered on this success in spades. So how will Nvidia replicate this growth, and why will it be a big deal for Tesla? Let's peel back the hood and take a look. But before we do, if you're liking this type of content, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to keep up to date on everything going on with Tesla. There are some parallels that make Nvidia a potential candidate for Tesla's post-COVID surge. First up, just like Tesla, Nvidia is a leader in a hot and growing market, which is the world of artificial intelligence and high-performance computing. These are fields that are powering everything from self-driving cars to advanced medical imaging and next-gen gaming. And these technologies become more mainstream, which is making the demand for Nvidia's performance from its powerful GPUs become a pretty hot commodity. Plus, Nvidia isn't afraid to push boundaries, and it's always innovating with new products, just like how Tesla was cranking out cars during the pandemic. And this constant innovation could keep it at the forefront of the industry, making Nvidia a darling for investors who love a company that isn't too afraid to disrupt the status quo. So the big question, what does all this mean for Tesla? Let's find out.
Street's Glenn Kacher. You guys investors in this? Any interest in it?
In Reddit?
Yeah.
We're not direct investors in it, no, but certainly interested in the space and the internet category. I think Reddit is playing a role in AI as one of those content libraries that's been used to train these large language models.
I used the words, earlier, speaking of AI and the kinds of things that Jensen Huang at NVIDIA is talking about as sort of this dawn of a new industrial revolution. It sounds like you very much buy into that story, too, in the way you see the runway expanding for a lot of the companies that have a big part to play.
For sure. And then we're seeing, cash from operations and earnings surprising by 10%. We're seeing, that continuing for many years to come. And we're seeing a stock that is, probably going to be close to a double over the next year and a half or 2 years.
Big weightings you have also in the likes of AMD and Taiwan Semi, Amazon, Salesforce, Broadcom, Microsoft, Meta, GitLab. For the other semi stocks that you, let's just take an AMD, a Taiwan Semi, Broadcom, for example. How do you view those relative to Nvidia and the competitive landscape that's only going to get hotter?
Well, there certainly will be competition. And the first company I think that's going to have a real competitive chip will be AMD. But I think it's going to take quite a period of time for any other companies to really challenge Nvidia and then AMD. Over time, I think we'll see AI splinter. There will be different types of jobs and different types of processes and smaller models. And as that happens, there'll be more opportunity for kind of lower power chips, for instance, and custom ASICs to eat into the overall market. But at the same time, the GPU is so powerful. It's kind of like an earth mover and or an SUV that can do 10 different jobs really well, and be very powerful at the same time. And that's really hard for some of these other smaller companies to compete with. So we still love, Nvidia from here, and AMD is, next up in that group. Last time I was on, I talked about kind of our AI 5, the stocks that we are most focused on. Nvidia, AMD, Microsoft, Broadcom, the old ticker, Avago ticker, and then TSMC. And those are still the companies that we think are first up in really benefiting from this build out of infrastructure. So that's where we're concentrating our exposure.
Nvidia stock is soaring like Tesla on autopilot, partially fueled by the booming AI market. But there is a twist. This streak isn't just good news for Nvidia. In fact, it could be a major boom for Tesla as well. How's this going to happen though? Let's take a look. There's this saying that the rising tide lifts all boats, and right now that seems to be true for both companies. The thing is, if a company like Nvidia, which is a leader in the AI and chipmaking space, does actually experience a surge, then it could generate a positive ripple effect throughout the tech industry. Investors will likely get all excited about the potential of AI, and that can then spill into Tesla, which of course is a company that's already seen as a pioneer in EVs and autonomous driving. And that's not even all, because this renewed investor interest could translate into a nice little boost for Tesla's stock price as well.
The AI media here really really driving the market action. You've got the NASDAQ coming off that record high. Nvidia shares up just about 75% so far this year. Our next guest saying that there's more room to run in the AI trade, and he's wildly bullish on semiconductors. Let's bring him in. We have Chris Danley. He's Citi's head of U.S. Semiconductor Research joining us now. And Chris, I think many investors are at home right now asking themselves whether or not we're starting to see a bubble form in the AI trade. What do you think?
Yeah, good question. So I hate admitting it, but I've been covering semis for 30 years. And I would say that the last time we saw a single application drive what we call TAM expansion in semis, it's actually expanding the semiconductor market, was about 25 years ago with the advent of the internet. And I think that's probably the closest thing to what AI has done. Now, the internet eventually led to a bubble as well, but that went on for a good 2 or 3 years. And, semis, I will never go out and say that they are no longer cyclical. So at some point, this party will end, probably in a lot of tears. But for right now, we can't really see the end of it. I think what's going on is that entities, whether it's a government, a university, a business, are buying AI product, whether it's Nvidia or AMD or Micron or Broadcom or what have you, and they've either bought just a little bit of semis before, or they really haven't bought them. And again, we haven't seen this. I hate using superlatives because we get a lot of superlatives thrown around in semis and they don't actually work, but we haven't seen anything like this in probably a quarter century.
Who are the first departures from the AI party if we do see a bubble burst?
That's a good question. So as we've seen, what goes up must come down. And I would say that, in covering semis for 3 decades, when you do have a downturn in any particular end market, witness the downturn we had last year. Now, the stocks inflected the year before, but the downturn we had last year, it impacts everybody. So whenever the party ends, I really would not harbor any illusions about any of these stocks being able to get through it unscathed. But we really don't see any end in sight. So I think we've got a long way to go until we're going to start ringing the alarm bells, or even hearing a tinkling of bells out there in terms of AI.
The connection between Nvidia and Tesla goes deeper than just investor sentiment. Remember that Tesla doesn't just build electric cars, rather it's aiming for self-driving ones. And these self-driving features require a lot of processing power, the kind that Nvidia specializes in, especially when it comes to its high-performance GPUs. So this is how it can all play out. Nvidia's surge means a steady stream of even more powerful and efficient chips translating directly to Tesla because the automaker can potentially equip its cars with the best tech on the market, making its self-driving systems even more capable and reliable. There's another thing too. It's common knowledge that competition breeds innovation. And so with Nvidia leading the charge in AI and chip development, it can also push other companies like Tesla's competition in the autonomous vehicle spaces to start pushing their own boundaries too. This is no small feat, because there's a few things to keep in mind. First up, Nvidia's surge isn't a guarantee that Tesla will automatically reap the benefits, and also, Tesla still needs to execute on its promises of self-driving technology, and that is no easy feat. So, we're aware of all these possible challenges. However, it's also very obvious that a thriving Nvidia can definitely be a tailwind for Tesla, propelling the automaker forward in the race for autonomous driving supremacy. So maybe Tesla investors can have a lot to look forward to.
2024 for Tesla investors, as we've seen, maybe just some weak headline news. Kevin and I have been talking about this all week. We haven't seen anything positive on Apple or Tesla over the last several weeks, and the stock's been taking a hit here, down 29%. Do you have any data that says, hey, maybe this is an opportunity?
I tell you what, we do. I mean, we've actually issued a bullish alert to our hedge fund clients. I think it was 2 weeks ago, something like that, at the end of February. So we've got a lot of, it's not incredibly strong data, but it's contrary to the stock's performance, basically. We see a divergence opportunity with the stock falling and most of the data that we have being fairly strong. Now, keep in mind, on their last report, they dropped 12% because of increased costs and sort of vague guidance. And, I think there's been a bit of a shift with EVs. The demand has gotten a lot softer. Hybrids have been doing very well. They've got some momentum going. And of course, headlines like, Hertz dumping their EV fleet, that kind of thing, that's obviously going to cause problems for investors in Tesla. However, when we look at a lot of the data, I mean, it's pretty strong. The only model that isn't doing fantastic on a year-over-year basis is the Model Y, which has been their strongest performer. So it's got a high bar. The truck is, obviously way out there because everyone's anticipating it. I think there's been a few deliveries. I haven't seen one in the wild yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing the first one. But you can see here that most of their vehicles are doing well. The Y is a concern because it is one of their best performers, and the bar is high there. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens once the truck starts getting delivered. Now, I will say they've been putting a lot of pressure on their competition. I mean, when you look at the price drops that they've pulled off, Ford has had to kind of match. They dropped their Mustang Mach-E down to 48,000. They dropped it 8,000, but it's still higher than the Model Y, which also qualifies for the tax credit, and the Mustang does not. So, they're creating a lot of problems for their competition. But you look at just how they're doing compared to some of the competition, you can see Tesla's increasing web visits, Ford and GM, not so much. So, we've got good data on them. Everything is fairly strong. The mentions themselves are up about 5% on a year-over-year basis, while the stock is just getting crushed. So I like Tesla long-term based on the data. I like the company personally, but I don't let that get in my way. I read the data, and the data looks pretty good with the sell-off that does warrant, in my opinion, buying of a dip here and heading bullish into the rest of this year.
For Nvidia to surge just like Tesla, there are a number of things to consider. One is replicating Tesla's exact recipe for success, which could be tricky. Tesla had a charismatic leader in Elon Musk, a guy who could move stocks with a single tweet. Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang, on the other hand, is also undeniably brilliant, but he doesn't have the same social media presence. The magic of Musk's personality was a big part of the Tesla story, and that's a bit harder to replicate with Nvidia. Also, there's the fact that the stock market might be in a different mood these days. The post-pandemic frenzy has calmed down a lot, and investors might be more cautious. So this could mean that Tesla's stock price could not be replicated by Nvidia's stock price, and it might not see that same meteoric rise, even though some analysts don't want to admit it. So can Nvidia surge like Tesla? Well, it's possible. The company is in a strong spot with a growing market and constant stream of innovative products, but it might not be the same kind of wild ride that Tesla took us on. So here's what it boils down to. Nvidia's success is going to depend on its ability to capitalize on the ongoing AI boom and also keep on delivering the kind of cutting-edge technology that keeps them ahead of the curve. If this company can do that, then it might not need a social media superstar CEO to light the path to success. All it needs is to just keep on going, which is what it does best. And that is building the future and taking it one powerful chip at a time. So the next time you hear about Nvidia's stock price going bonkers, remember that it might not just be good news for them, and it could be a sign that Tesla's got some exciting developments on the horizon too, powered by the ever-evolving world of AI and the chips that make it all possible. And that's a future worth preparing for. But what do you think? Can Nvidia have that same surge as Tesla did in the post-COVID era? Let us know down below, and if you want to know more about what Tesla's been up to over the last few days, go ahead and click on this next video on your screen. See you there.